freedom just begun, living large under the sun.
Hello, and welcome to the SmartMAI Consulting Edge Podcast, where we speak with experienced consultants, advisors, and business leaders about how they solve difficult problems, guide organizations through change, drive sustainable growth, and create measurable results. I'm your host, Dan Mulberry, and today's episode is titled Revenue First, where strategy, data, AI, and human judgment meet. Few business disciplines have experienced as much change as marketing. Over the past several decades, we've moved from traditional advertising and database marketing into websites, search, social media, sophisticated analytics, automation, personalization, and now AI. The tools have become dramatically more powerful. The amount of available data has exploded. And today, AI can research markets, generate content, personalize communication, analyze campaigns, and accomplish in minutes what once required days or weeks. Yet, with all that technology, companies still struggle with some remarkably familiar problems. They don't understand their customers well enough, they confuse marketing activity with business results, and they invest in tactics before defining a strategy. They sometimes become so focused on the data and technology that they forget they're still marketing to human beings. Well, our guest today has watched that evolution firsthand. JP Clement, JP, is the founder and CEO of the Marketing Distillery, a strategy and marketing firm whose philosophy is summed up in two words: revenue first. JP brings more than 35 years of experience across strategy, marketing, product management, analytics, business development, and ops. His careers included senior marketing leadership at companies we're all familiar with: CitySearch, Ticketmaster, Clear Channel Interactive, and he's worked with brands and organizations including GM, Madison Square Garden, Johnson & Johnson, Amgen, National Geographic, and others, where he's built leading digital marketing businesses. And most recently, he operated and turned around a PE-backed company. Today, the Marketing Distillery combines strategy, implementation, analytics, and AI with a very clear objective: create measurable revenue and return on investment. JP, welcome to the SmartMAI Consulting Edge.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure. So listen, you have a ton of experience. You've been working in marketing, product, and strategy for more than 35 years. When you compare the beginning of your career with marketing today, what's fundamentally changed, and what have marketers convinced themselves has changed but really hasn't?
Very good question. As you can see by my gray hair and gray beard, yes, it's been over 35 years. And I was trained as a very traditional brand marketer by General Mills after I graduated from business school. And yes, I mean, the progress in the past 35 years has been pretty outstanding and astonishing, to be honest. But I think the core of marketing hasn't really changed. It's the tools that we've been using and the process we've been using. Marketing to me is still exactly the same thing it used to be. And that thing is, we're here to change people's behaviors, like our customers' behaviors, our consumers' behaviors. And as I said, it's just the tools have changed dramatically, which means a lot. There's a lot to unpack here, but it definitely has altered the doing of the marketing, but the why of marketing has not changed.
Yeah, so we talked about a number of different things that have come up over the years as kind of the hot button in marketing. Mm-hmm. Which technologies have genuinely changed marketing the most? Would that be AI?
Well, I think first the internet, right? When I started doing marketing in 1988 with General Mills, we didn't even have, it was just the inception of tracking and tracking in grocery stores. There's a company called IRI that I just started, and finally we had a terminal with based on a server that was no cloud back then, right? So we were like just starting to do some basic data gathering and data manipulation about sales and what was going on in the marketplace. I remember that little terminal on my desk at General Mills and like, wow, this is great, right? We can finally understand a little bit better what's going on in the marketplace. And on a more timely basis. So that was, I think, the first change, right? The using barcodes to scan data, that data being aggregated somewhere. So, but I think the next step was obviously the birth and of the internet was really life changing for marketers, and it opened up all kinds of avenues and doors and tools for marketers, and a dramatic change in how to communicate with user bases or customers and consumers. And then I think now AI is actually about to change that paradigm again. And so that's what at the Marketing Distillery, we're investing a lot, like you are, I know Dan, investing a lot in understanding how AI can help marketing. And there's a myriad ways that it can, which is trying to parse out which ones are the best, how we can really add value to our clients using AI, and at the same time, keeping the famous human in the loop to basically create the best possible ROI using a combination of AI tools and real people tools, physical human beings.
So you've already talked about some of the marketing principles that survive regardless of the technology. Or do you find that younger marketers out there sometimes know the platforms extremely well, but given that they don't have the 35 years of experience, they lack some of the underlying business and customer fundamentals that us older guys had to do first?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the kind of the side effects of the internet and of AI even more so is that people are cutting corners, right? And I think the younger generations tend to forget those basic principles of marketing, which I think, as I mentioned, still exist and still are very, very, very valid. And so, yeah, so I think those new tools are great in some respect, but they help people really get to an answer, and I'm not saying the answer, but an answer faster without sometimes doing the background work and the homework and that needs to be done, understanding the marketing principles to get to the right answer.
So let's talk about the Marketing Distillery a little bit. So you guys aren't just a marketing agency. Your language is very direct. We engineer revenue. What does that change about the conversation that you have with your clients?
Yeah, so we've arrived at that that positioning, if you want to call it that, after many trials and tribulations and a lot of changes. We started as a social media marketing agency. We became a go-to-market agency. We've helped with product issues. We've helped with just general management issues, financial issues, marketing issues. So we become this kind of hybrid type of company. But throughout all the 16 years now of existence of the Marketing Distillery, something that has come up all the time, and that's what we just decided to change our positioning to something very specific, is whether it's a B2C company, whether it's a B2B company or a B2B2C company, all these companies want is to generate revenue, right? Stall growth. Oh, our revenues are not growing anymore. We don't know why. What's going on? And very often, marketing is at the root of these issues, and marketing can solve these issues. But it's not just always just marketing, right? It might be the link between marketing and sales. It can be sales. It could be so. But at the same time, because marketing is so powerful at the top of the funnel, when you're talking about the revenue, still, we decided to use that positioning because we think that's what every single company wants, and this is what we're coming us to for. So that's the core of what we do now is, and we focus on, if we don't generate revenue for you, we're not doing our job. And sometimes the link between what we do and the revenue generation is a bit tenuous, but that's our job to educate our clients to say, hey, you know, what we're doing here, you might not understand or realize that it's generating those revenues there. But yeah, this is how we talk to our potential clients and actual clients. And yeah, that's what we do.
Makes sense. So a side question on that, given that sometimes the problem is not marketing, should a marketing leader be willing to tell their CEO, you don't have a marketing problem?
Yeah, and we do actually. And I think it's very well received because, you know, our job we see as helping our clients. If there is a hard truth that needs to be said, it's our job to do it, right? And if it doesn't involve marketing, we'll let them know that, yeah, we can help. You can spend money with us, but it's not really going to give you those results that you're hoping for, because the root cause of your problem is partially marketing, but there is a bigger issue over there. And this is where all our experience in marketing, and not just in marketing, but in product management, in business development, in sales, in operations, marketing operations, but also general operations in finance, helps us understand where those issues are and try. So a typical client and engagement will start with, hey, you know, tell us what your problems are. It's a lot of listening. It's a lot of probing to understand really, truly where the issues are. And then after that, if marketing is the answer, then we can help.
Well, one thing that I hear consistently from successful consultants is that they don't just create a strategy or document and walk away. They're focused also on execution and implementation, and you do that too. You connect the strategy directly to the implementation. Tell us about how that works and what the benefit is.
Yeah, so I mean, look, consulting or consultants has become kind of a four-letter word a little bit in some respect, and you know, a book that really changed that I read and really changed my vision. Although I was kind of doing it, but that book verbalized what I was doing and gave me a better structure to do it. It's a book called Getting Naked. I know it's a weird title, but it's really, I recommend it to every entrepreneur in the consulting, legal, even, I mean, any kind of business service company can really, or manager or leader can really learn from that book. And it's all about, as we talked about, telling the hard truths in a kind way, right? But really being open and honest and really engaging your services with the client at a very deep level and being totally open and transparent. Which is kind of a long story, but it really goes into also the implementation. So I think like consulting, as I said, has kind of bad rap, right? So we don't really call ourselves consultants because a lot of people say, oh, I've been burned by consultants, especially small and medium-sized businesses, which we try to focus on because that's where the bigger needs are, I think, and where we can have the most impact. So the way we're thinking about this is that a strategy is critical. If you don't have the strategy right, then everything else is going to fall apart. But a good strategy is only as good as how you implement that strategy. So what we spend a lot of time doing and thinking about is, okay, what are the KPIs? How do you measure what we're doing here? Because if you can't, one of my mentors years ago told me, if you can't measure it, you cannot manage it. And I've lived by that since, and I still believe in it. And the beauty of digital marketing and AI is that you can measure a lot of things very precisely. But so what we do is we put in place KPIs and targets, and we track to those. We monitor them and we track to them. And we either hold our clients' hands through the implementation, or sometimes we do the implementation ourselves because they don't have the resources, the skills, or the time to actually do what we're recommending that they do.
So you mentioned data analytics in there and KPIs.
Mhm.
So you spent a large part of your career focused on the analytics and the ROI.
Mhm.
And the marketing distillery says that analytics is our middle name.
Yep.
I think I know the answer to this, but what numbers actually tell you whether the marketing is working?
Well, that's a loaded question, Dan. Thanks for putting me on the spot here. So it depends. I mean, I'm sorry, it sounds like a wishy-washy answer, but it really depends. Every project we do has different KPIs. So in some cases, it might be cost per acquisition, right? CPA. In some times, it might be, visits to a website, right? Or it can be engagement on the social media platform. It's really the strategy drives what the KPIs are. So the issues and challenges that the client is facing drive the strategy, right? And the strategy then drives the KPIs in a sense. So it's going to vary. It's going to be different. I mean, you see some commonalities, right? As I mentioned, there's a lot of the metrics that have been tracked that are pretty similar, but it's really, they have to be custom made for each and every project.
Right. Makes sense, but it all ultimately leads to better
Well,
revenue, correct?
yeah, and in the end, one of the main KPIs is like, okay, how many more clients did you get me, right? How many more widgets did you sell for me? How many more views to my views to my website did you get so I can monetize that, right? So it's all about revenue in the end. As I mentioned before, sometimes that there is a very fine thread between the marketing actions and the actual revenue generation, but that thread is still there. So yeah, in the end, it's all about revenue. But there are some KPIs for me are just not, they're kind of like signals. And so if they're not the end in and of themselves, they are signals, right? So I say, hey, if your cost per acquisition is not tracking right, then there's something going on that we're not doing right, or there's something that's not working. And this is what we use to actually get that, because if your cost per acquisition is too high, then your ROI at the end of the day is not going to work out. So again, KPIs for me more of a signal, but very important data point to get to the ultimate reward, which is more revenue.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. A bad analogy, I guess, would be a road trip. It's not just where you end up, it's how you get there and monitoring what happens to get there. So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So AI is really good at finding patterns in data, but can it distinguish between statistically interesting patterns and a commercially meaningful insight without someone supplying the business context?
Um, it can get us a lot of the way there, but ultimately you need that human in the loop with expertise and experience to actually say, yeah, okay, that last 20% is really, or maybe 10% in some cases, is where you need someone with experience to be able to make sure that the patterns that AI is seeing, and AI is really good at context, by the way, as you probably know, right? So you can throw a lot of context into AI, business context, but there are still some subtleties and very important subtleties that AI has not yet been trained to recognize or understand and factor into their output.
Yeah, I know you've made the point in the past that marketers need to trust judgment even when the data seems to point somewhere else. When have you learned not to blindly follow the KPI numbers?
So sorry, why or where or when? Sorry,
When?
when? Um,
When, how, why? They're all good questions.
yeah. So a big thread in my own career has been, in my whole evolution, has been I always prided myself on being very good at reading numbers, understanding numbers and patterns in the numbers, and creating stories at those numbers. Stories that I could use when I was working on the corporate side to tell my bosses, right, what was going on, or to tell the CEO of the company, hey, this is what's going on, and this is how we should react. Or as a consultant and owner of several marketing agencies, being able to tell our clients, hey, this is what the numbers are telling us, and creating stories that can be understood by clients or managers or leaders of businesses. So throughout that process, very quickly I realized that you can tell any stories from any numbers. But the key is understanding, as you mentioned, the business context or all the factors that are coming into those that are affecting those numbers, and trying to suss out what exactly that story is, what the true story is. And so that happened to me very early in my career, to be honest. And I've been kind of on this weird quest of like, okay, I have all these tools giving me all kinds of data, all kinds of numbers. And now it's my job as a marketer, as a consultant, as general consultant, to really understand what those numbers mean, and to make sure that what I'm seeing makes sense, right, from a business standpoint. So it happened very early, but it's still an ongoing trip or journey.
Two questions about that and how AI is affecting
Yeah.
the way you conduct business. One is AI can create a bunch of strategies, plausible strategies, almost instantaneously.
Mhm.
So I assume that based on what you're saying, that actually increases the value of an experienced human strategist, because someone still has to determine which one makes business sense and make that decision.
Absolutely. I'm going through that process right now with a client, and I am looking at and AI is spitting out really amazing ideas. But for instance, I just did a quick a series of prompts in AI for a client, and realized that, oh my God, there's like, so they came up with 5 bullet points, because that's what I was asking, like, give me 3 to 5 bullet points, strategies possible, whatever, given all the information that I've given AI. And out of the 5, 3 just made sense in theory, but were totally not applicable. And the other 2 are excellent points that I could have come up with myself, actually, but they basically validated where my thinking was going. And now it's hard actually to decide between these 2, because it's very probably going to both have to be put in place. I'll try to kind of figuring out how to merge these 2 different strategies. They're not incredibly different, but so yes, absolutely, we need you need the human in the loop that has the experience to be able to make sense of what AI is generating.
Yeah, and I think, given the amount of research, strategy documents, campaigns, content, et cetera, that AI can put out, that's also increased a risk of confusing output with actual execution. So again, I think the human needs to come into play there, someone with your talents and skills and experience to really vet that.
Yeah, and AI can do actually my take so far, and AI is evolving so fast that maybe my take is going to be obsolete in the next 3 months, right? Which is very possible. Just to see the difference just on OpenAI and ChatGPT 3.5 versus ChatGPT 5.0. It's incredible the amount of progress that those agents are and those platforms are making. But anyway, so my take right now is that AI is really helpful at generating data, at generating ideas, concepts, are kind of doing the prep and the homework. It's very good at that, at generating, basically doing all the grinding tasks that would take, literally days in some cases for a marketer to actually go through, or like to look through spreadsheets of data points, right? Or to look at market research insights or market research results and things like that. It's very good at doing this, even just simply as meetings, right? And taking notes. I mean,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I know it sounds silly because everybody's doing this now in AI, but it's amazing. I'm generating for a client right now, like 3 hour workshop. And before it would have taken me literally a couple days to actually get some output from these, to be able to collate the data, to type it in, put it in a PowerPoint, put it in a Miro board or something like that. Now I'm just literally I'm done in 30 minutes, and I can send a recap to everybody saying, hey, this is what we discussed, this is what the next steps are, and it's done, right? So it's all about grind work that necessarily not very productive or in a strategic sense, right? Productive work that can be done by AI. You still need eyes. I still parse through everything that AI gets me. But literally, it's 30 minutes versus 3 days, right? So which is a huge benefit because then you can concentrate on the things that really matter, right? You can concentrate on
Exactly.
strategy. You can concentrate on picking the right strategy. You can concentrate on adding more context or having deeper discussions with your clients as an agency.
Yeah, exactly. The real benefit of AI as it stands today to me is exactly what you said. It takes away all of those things that are inefficient or I guess less efficient for a human to do,
Mhm.
gives that result to you rapidly and lets you do your job better because you can focus on the more important things.
Yeah.
Let's shift to another one of your philosophies. So, in your series, 100 Things I've Learned About Marketing in 35 Years That AI Won't Tell You,
Yes.
one of your first lessons is really simple. Listening may be the most powerful marketing tool. Why
Mhm.
is it that sometimes sophisticated marketers struggle with something that basic?
Wow, that's a good question. It's interesting. Yeah, I haven't really asked myself that. So let me try to. I'm thinking a lot here, so bear with me. But I
No,
think
that's,
it's
I'm asking you to be a psychologist, I think. So that's okay.
yeah. Actually, AI does pretty good supposedly at doing psychology work too in
Exactly.
those chats. But anyway, no, I think it's I think it's a common human flaw that AI probably doesn't have yet. Although if it gets better and better, it probably will start creating flaws of itself because of who we are and how we set up those LLMs. But I just think it's because I mean human beings in general, and we're kind of doing it here, right? We love to
Mhm.
talk. We all, especially people like us, Dan, we're passionate, experienced people that really love what we're doing. Obviously, that's why we're here today. And I think it's very easy for us to really like, oh, I want to talk about this. I want to say this. I've experienced that, so I want to talk about it. And it's very easy to to not listen or even to stop listening because we want to share so much. We're tribal people, right? I mean, we want to communicate. That's how we create who we are and the space around us. And so I think that's why people don't. And I think the more experienced you are, the more you've done, the older you get, the more I think the less you listen because you've done so much, you've learned so much, you want to share this, right? And this is
That's
what we
true.
do. But this is also part of the Getting Naked book. Is kind of it starts like it's like, hey, listen to your clients as a business service, right? Provider, listen to your customers. Ask questions. Don't. And I worked with a company, and their thing was like when you're trying to sell a client, this was about selling here, but it applies, I think, to a lot of things. It's like be interested, not interesting. It's basically ask questions, listen, don't talk about yourself or don't talk about what you've done or don't talk about what your company's done. Listen. So anyway, sorry, long
That's a
kind of
great
a
quote.
rambling statement here, but this is what I believe in.
Oh, that's a great quote. So you've also said that listening, the data can tell us what happened, but listening can reveal why. So in your practice, how do you combine that quantitative data with the actual customer conversations?
Yeah, so again, it's kind of comes from the thing about listening and asking questions, right? I mean, as I mentioned before, my whole quest has been to for my career is to get data and then to make stories out of the data. You can create that story if you don't start understanding the context better, right? So it's all about data's there. I can look at the data and start making up stories. And not only making up in a bad way, right? I mean, creating stories. But then I need to bounce these stories off of my client because they have the knowledge. They have 100 times more knowledge about their problems, their challenges, their customers, their company, their own context, right? Than I will ever have. So the idea is like, hey, data is kind of this objective the subjective side of things. When you start creating a story, it becomes a bit more subjective. And to create a good subjective story, you need more context, more input. And this is what I do basically. So the idea the way I like to do it personally is I look at the data, I start creating stories, I create kind of a dashboard with little snippet with like the key information, little snippets of text, right? And then review that with the client and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is do you agree? Does that make sense to you? Does it bring up more questions, more thoughts, maybe, more challenges? And this is that conversation is what gets us to like the true final story, if you want, or interpretation. And this is how I like doing it.
Yeah, great answer. Great answer. So you've had an unusual career. You didn't remain solely on the marketing side. You became CEO of Boomtime. You later led Vera Winery and Distillery and spent several years, as we mentioned, with the PE-backed business turnarounds.
Yeah.
How did sitting in that CEO seat change your view of marketing?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure it actually changed it. I think it almost reinforced it. And it was very hard for me, by the way, to step away from the marketing function. But the marketing function it reinforced the fact that something I learned at the very beginning of my career and why I wanted to go into marketing, because ultimately my goal was not to be a marketer the rest of my life, but to actually go into general management. And at the time, a long time ago, over 35 years ago, marketing was seen with finance and marketing were seen as the two kind of ways to get to the CEO level in a company. Although it probably should have been sales, but sales, marketing, and finance. So I said, no, I'll do marketing because it suits me as a person. It's more my personality than finance. And then maybe, one day I can become a CEO. So I always thought about marketing as a very strategic, kind of high level, C-suite level kind of function. That had to be integrated into things. So when I became CEO of these companies, and I realized it confirmed that yes, marketing is critical, but there's a lot of other things going on. And it became also very obvious that marketing needs to be fully integrated. And I think this is something that a lot of companies don't do very well, that it should be seamless, right? Finance, marketing, sales, all these different functions need to work very harmoniously, especially marketing and sales. Whether it's a B2B, B2C, B2B2C company, doesn't really matter. It's like marketing and sales very often are operating in silos, and they need to be fully 100% integrated. And as a CEO, that's something that you can do, right? You can force those issues, but it didn't really drastically change my view of marketing. It kind of reinforced some of the things and also pointed me towards some of the challenges that marketing is facing in general.
Makes sense. So another question on the working with turnarounds. How do you determine whether, when you walk into a company, whether the revenue problem comes from demand, sales execution, ops, positioning, leadership, or some combination of all of them?
Yeah, so this is where I use my consulting background, because I've done a lot of consulting, not just agency marketing consulting, but a lot of other types of consulting, and with a lot of industries. And I always use the same process, which we talked about. Is like I ask questions for 3 months. I don't do anything. I don't make any decisions really, unless it's drastic and some things need to get done and they're super obvious, and but for as long as I can, I don't make any decisions. I just ask questions. I talk to everybody. I listen a lot. I just look at the numbers, and then turn around. The financial numbers are obviously critical, but the marketing numbers, the sales numbers, I mean, really digging deep. And then after that, I come up and say, okay, now I know what's going on, right? Or I get a sense of what's going on. If it's an industry that I don't have experience in, like marketing and wine, marketing and wine, I mean, winery and distillery, I was a consumer myself, but I had no idea of how the business operated. So I had also to learn the business itself. I mean, the business of winemaking, wine selling, which is very complicated, and changes every state in the country on top of it. So yeah, it's a lot of discovery, and then putting these pieces together into a story that makes sense. Okay, oh wow, this is why this business is not working out. This is what we need, and therefore this is what we need to change. This is exactly what I did with Vara, the winery and distillery. 3 months later, I was knocking on the door of the board and saying, hey, we need to talk because there are some serious issues, and this is what we need to do.
So one more question regarding your CEO experience and your perspective on things. So AI is often sold to CEOs as a productivity or cost reduction tool. Having operated businesses yourself and operating one now, where would you look for AI to create revenue or enterprise value rather than simply reducing headcount?
To me, it's not the right positioning for AI, to be honest. I don't see AI. It does help with productivity. It can help you reduce headcount. It can do all these things, but I think what people are missing and what we're talking about here is that it can actually help you generate revenue. It can speed up your growth, right? It can, and again, it's not about productivity in this case. Maybe I'm using the wrong words here. It's not speeding up, but it can really boost and turbocharge your growth in terms of revenue, in terms of however you measure that, the number of clients, actual revenue, like dollars or whatever. It can help with all of it. It's just a matter of understanding exactly where, so first, what your challenges are, what the strategy to implement this, and then where does AI fit? And I think you and I, as consultants slash, marketing experts and whatever, I think the way we can help our clients the most is to go through the homework and the process of figuring out and listening, right? Figuring out what the challenges are, figuring out where the issues are in the process, figuring out, whether it's marketing or sales or whatever, creating a strategy that makes sense, and then helping them understand, hey, we can do this, but AI can do it better. So let us have AI do this on our behalf. We'll be the eyes and the brains and the ears on top of AI to make sure that what it's generating makes sense for the strategy that we just designed with you. But it can help in so many different ways. And I think it's just, educating our clients and our partners as to where AI can make the most, can drive the most benefits for them, for their strategy, right? It has to be super customized. It needs to be customized because every case is pretty much different, in my experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you've been very open about the fact that you use AI quite a bit in the marketing distillery. And by the way, I see what you did there with the name. I love it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, well, it's distilling the essence of marketing. By the way, you have no idea how many people came to me when I first started the company saying, "Oh, Are you helping distilleries? I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm distilling the essence of marketing.
Yeah, that's a great play on words, though, given your background. But so, in your use of AI, you've also emphasized it has to be fenced in by experience. So, what does that human guardrail look like in practice? I think we've talked about that a bit already, but do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, a little bit. So for us specifically, we create some. We actually we're not we're in a process of we've been using AI a lot, but we're in a process of actually creating some specific agents, a series of agents that can do specific tasks, marketing tasks. And actually, we're using the marketing. It's going to come out in probably a few weeks, but we're using the marketing distillery as its own guinea pig. I love doing that. So we're doing because we're a B2B business, right? We're selling to other companies. So we're actually building some agents for ourselves that also can be used and testing them on ourselves, that also will be able to be used for our clients. A series of agents, dashboards, and things like that. But the idea is like, hey, we have people building those agents and rebuilding the website, but the website will be rebuilt just with vibe coding, right? And thanks to Claude, we can do all kinds of crazy things and fast and inexpensively. So it will be totally redone. But the idea is that, yeah, so building those agents, people build those agents, and then experienced marketers. And right now there's three of us. It doesn't show on the website yet, but there's three of us with a lot of marketing experience, not just in digital marketing, but also in marketing ops, which I think is very critical. And people tend to forget. So the agents will do their work. It will put the results up in a dashboard, and our expert marketers will look at them and say, hey, before it goes to the client, yeah, this is working, this is not working. We need to tweak those prompts. We need to do this. We need to do that. So it's really a simple, well, not simple, but it's a three-step process, right? We tell the agents what to do. We build the agents. The agents spit out some results, and then as marketers, we look at the results and say, okay, yes, no, or hey, we need to tweak this, we need to tweak that, and this is ultimately what goes to the client. So there is always a human in the loop. But we're replacing a lot of and this is why we can reduce the cost, right? Because there's only a few humans, and a lot of the work that we'd have to pay someone to do before is being done by AI. Oh, AI is the cost, obviously, as you know, but it's orders of magnitude lower than hiring some actual
Absolutely.
carbon-based people.
Yeah, so as AI generated material and content becomes almost impossible to distinguish from human work, you've advocated transparency. Why do you think content authenticity is becoming so important?
Well, I think it's always been important, but it's more important now, as you mentioned, because AI can generate content in a lot of cases better than human beings. I did a quick I love reading. I love books. That's something that my mom passed on to me years ago, and I've read a lot in my life, and not as much now that I have kids and all kinds of things going on. But I still love reading, and I've always I'm so in awe of all these authors and writers. I have my favorites, obviously, but and I read mostly fiction. And so I'm like, I've always wanted to say, oh, I should write a book. And I've had some great ideas over the years, I think. But I never be able to actually take the time to do it, or have the wherewithal to actually do it. But when AI started coming up about a year ago, I just, I'm going to unearth this idea that I had. I fed it into, I think it was Gemini at the time, Gemini Pro. And I said, hey, write me the first, this is the central idea. These are some of the scenes or the things that I think should happen. And just generate an outline of, and write like the first chapter, right out of the book, generated the first chapter in the style of, I won't say who, and literally 10 minutes later, I had a whole outline of the book. I had a whole first chapter that I was like, oh my God, I could have never written that myself. And it was there. And so it is incredible, right? But this is why it's so important that people don't get, and this is why the Writers Guild of America was on strike 2 years ago, right? I remember in LA, where because they know that AI can create scripts, movie scripts, screenwriters, do some screenwriting work and faster and better than a lot of people actually can. So yeah, it is critical, and this is because AI is so good, and we need to. So and you don't want to deceive people, right? Trust is especially in the marketing space and in the business services space. You need to build trust. And you can't build trust if you're not transparent about your use of AI, I believe. And again, this is just me speaking here. So yeah, so we're very transparent. A lot of these, the things that you were talking about were generated by AI, with a lot of prompting, right? And a lot of things, but and a lot of tone changes and things like that. But in the end, it's AI, right? But it's writing better than I can do it myself. So I think this is where you need to be transparent, but at the same time, and you can rely on AI for everything. But I think this combination of like, hey, AI can do some things very well. But if you can put your tone on top of it, your special sauce, your experience, your expertise, whatever, it becomes more human and more trustworthy, I think. And the trust economy, and I know it's been talked about, but it's a huge thing, and I think this is something that we need to be very careful about. So
one final question for you, JP. So given how skillful AI has become at developing content, whether that's for a polished campaign, personalized emails, videos, whatever. If every competitor has the tools available to them to go out and do that, what's going to actually differentiate one brand from another in the future?
That's an awesome question.
That's why I saved it for last.
Yeah, wow. Going out with a bang here. I really believe again, and I'm starting to sound like a broken record a little bit, but it's all about that human in loop, that experience, and that strategy, right? So it starts. I think this is where it starts, right? It's like creating a strategy that is that really differentiates yourself. Creating a brand that is differentiated, right? If it's at the very start and the branding level, and this is where I think AI is not as good at. It's understanding really what truly differentiates things, and it's not. The differentiation is that, oh, our logo is red versus blue, right? Yeah, we're different. And we're facing that, especially, I don't know if you had that issue or pet peeve, but I know I have. As marketing agencies, as consultants, it's very hard to differentiate ourselves, right? Very, very hard, because there's another 10,000 consultants and agencies in this country that are kind of doing the same thing. And it's very difficult to say, hey, no, we're different. Well, why are you different? How are you different? And to explain that is something that AI cannot do, right? This is something only us, with our experience, with our knowledge, with our creativity, our, for lack of a better word, humanness, right, can do that. We can really make that difference, and so this is what I'm striving to do with the marketing distillery. This is what I'm trying to do for my clients. And so, because I worked as a CEO, as you mentioned, in the wine and the spirits industry, I'm getting a lot of people saying, "Hey, can you help with like?" And I've been helping some wineries with consulting and marketing, and I feel bad for them because they don't have a true. I mean, they don't have a story to tell. They're not. Yeah, they're making wine. Maybe they're getting a slightly better score than this other winery down the street. But ultimately, it's a very commoditized product, and all these wineries are struggling to figure out how to differentiate themselves. And AI is not going to help there. It's people like me, like people like you, like really going into these businesses and really understanding the why of the business, the personality of the business, figuring out the differentiation, knowing what their competitors are doing, which AI can help with, obviously, but ultimately it's not even that last mile, right? Or that last 10%, that last 1%. This is where I think us humans with experience and empathy, I think, is really critical too, which AI doesn't have necessarily a lot of empathy, is where we can make a big difference in terms of differentiating businesses.
Awesome. Well, JP, thank you again for joining us. It's clear from our conversation that better marketing technology doesn't eliminate any of the fundamentals of good marketing. No amount of automation eliminates the need to understand the human being on the other side of the transaction. And even though AI can dramatically increase our speed, productivity, analytical capability, experience still provides context, judgment determines what matters, and trust, empathy, relationships, and genuine customer understanding remains profoundly human. JP, if anyone wants to reach out to you and talk to you about your services and learn more about the marketing distillery, how do they do that?
They can reach out via email. It's the best way for me, or jpc@themarketingdistillery.com. Or go to our website, themarketingdistillery.com, and there's forms there. There's all kinds of ways to reach me. I'm also on LinkedIn. Obviously, that's probably how we met in the first place. I'm very, although LinkedIn is changing dramatically thanks to AI, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of AI generated people there. But anyway, I'm on LinkedIn. JP Clement is my LinkedIn handle. So that's another way to reach out to me.
Well, JP Clement, thank you very much for being a guest. This has been the SmartMAI Consulting Edge Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
God, our freedom just begun.